Welcome to the Dance NYC 2022 Symposium, Life Cycles, Livelihoods, Legacies. We will be with you shortly. Today's schedule. Today we gathered for a welcome and wake up, morning sessions, an 11:30 dance break presented by Goodman Center for African and Diaspora Dance, and 12 p.m. early afternoon sessions. We will now begin our 2:30 late afternoon sessions, followed by a 4:15 community daily debrief, where all attendees are encouraged to attend and discuss the day's activities. At 5 o'clock, head over to our exhibitor hall again to explore our second virtual expo showcase of the day. And at 6 o'clock, we will present our keynote presentation. Accessibility. ASL interpretation and live captioning will be provided for today's session. A stream-to-text link will be posted in the chat and participation guide for access to the live transcription. Stay connected with us by posting your takeaways on social media using the hashtags DanceSymp, DanceNYC 2022, and DanceSymp2022. On Instagram at dance.nyc, on Twitter at dance.nyc, and on Facebook at dance/NYC. Community guidelines. Based on Dance NYC's values of justice, equity, and inclusion, we agree to share our opinions, challenge perspectives, and engage or debate respectfully, and acknowledge and course correct if harm is caused. Honor everyone's personhood and humanity. Not tolerate speech that is disparaging, abusive, violent, or that is intended to defame someone's character publicly. Some features not to miss. Build your agenda of sessions. Connect with other attendees. Join community conversations. Visit the exhibitor hall. Don't forget to check out the 2022 Symposium digital program book. We are happy to be in community with you. Thanks for joining.
Hello and welcome to our session on Dance in Higher Ed. My name is Ariel Herrera. I am the Manager for Research and Advocacy at Dance NYC. My pronouns are he, him, his. I live in Muncie, Lenape Land, now called West Village in Manhattan. I am a non-disabled cisgender male, Asian American of Filipino descent. I have short dark hair and wear eyeglasses. I'm currently wearing a gray shirt with 2 pockets, and behind me is a white wall. First, thank you for joining us for the Digital 2022 Dance NYC Symposium. As we are at the mercy of technology, we want to remind you that there may be delays, sound issues, and changing circumstances that may occur during our time together. We invite you to extend us and each other grace and patience. Second, ASL interpreters from SignNexus and closed captioning services provided by the Viscardi Center will be available throughout the session. A stream-to-text link will also be available and posted in the chat for further reference. We will also post speaker information in the description below. And under the speakers module on the left side of your Whova web app or the menu of your Whova mobile app, this information is also available on our website. Third, feel free to post comments you want to share with the community in the chat section to the right of this event room. Dance NYC moderators will be interacting with you there. There is a designated Q&A section after the panel conversation, so please feel free to drop your questions into the Q&A module to be sent along to the panel. If the chat is not accessible, please call our helpline at 212-966-4454 for technical support or to propose questions or comments. After the session ends, We invite you to join us for a session follow-up in the community section of HUBA, where you can continue the conversation. Lastly, we hope that you will help us amplify these conversations. So please repost, tag us, and share your takeaways on Twitter at DanceNYC, Instagram, dance.nyc, and Facebook, dance/NYC, using the hashtag DanceSYMP or DanceSimp. And now we begin our session. I would like to welcome our moderator, Professor and Chair at Hunter College Dance Department, Paul Dennis. Welcome, Paul.
Okay. Everyone to this Dance NYC panel. The panel here is designed to talk about dance in a changing world, forging a changing world. This panel discussion explores the expectations, the assumptions, the misunderstandings, and opportunities that collegiate dance studies can offer toward a full life in its many pathways. We're going to try to discuss issues such as, what is the point of a dance education? How can higher education support life transitions and the pursuit of right livelihood? How may dance studies participate in forging a legacy of change in the world? So welcome again. My name is Paul Dennis. I use he, him, his pronouns. I am a non-disabled, brown-skinned, Afro-Caribbean, cis male with dark, long, locked hair. Say that first. I am wearing black eyeglasses, a pale purple buttoned-down shirt, and a patterned blue jacket. We are streaming from Hunter College. This institution is situated on the original and unceded territory, Mana Hata Lenape-Hoking, the homeland of the disposed Lenape people. Our panel sits at a white table on which lies 4 microphones and coffee mugs in a room with lab annotation symbols on the wall, a monitor with the Hunter logo, and a table of plants behind us. I'd like to continue by saying a big thank you to Dance NYC, Izzy, Dow, Brinda Guha, Shani Jamila, and Candace Thompson-Zachary, who have guided and encouraged and supported this panel. Jonathan Mena, the Hunter College Manager of Campus and Online Events. Brooke Brown, the Hunter Dance Lighting Designer, Director of Productions. And President Rob of Hunter College, who has generously supported Dance NYC and Hunter College dance participation in this forum. I'd like to continue by introducing our panelists. First, Timothy Edwards. Timothy Edwards found dance as an adolescent in Hawaii. He forged a path in life that included the military and corporate world before deciding to go back to school and pursue dance as a career in his mid-20s. Just yesterday, right? He now has danced throughout the world as a concert and commercial dancer. He also has taught at Hunter College and at many Department of Education schools, dance studios, and even abroad as a cultural envoy. Welcome, Timothy. Could you also tell us, how did the military and corporate world shape your trajectory as an artist?
Thanks, Paul. This is Timothy. I am, a little description of myself. I am an African-American, non-disabled, cisgender male. I'm short, though I think I am tall, 5'5", I stand. I am wearing a brown derby-style hat, adorned with some of my favorite accoutrements, and my favorite pin is a flamingo. My sweater I wear is color blocked with a few colors, blues and browns and deep greens, and I'm wearing a painter pants, denim pants, and I'm wearing glasses, tortoise style. You know, tortoise, we're hurting.
In the making of this
It is just a style. And so to answer your question, Paul, I think everything in my life is a buildup and leads up to everything else. So there's no difference when it comes to thinking of my artistry, my dance, and my career in dance, how the military and corporate world forged that. I think I look at the art as very pragmatic and stories, and I think of it as scenarios, and I use that, what I've lived, to put into what I do now on stage and what I teach. So I think there's a lot of that's in there. And also I think something that people are fearful of, which I always welcome in my life, is learning what are the no's and what are the things I don't like. And that's what helped forge me to do what I do in my dance now. So I think that's.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And next is Anna Nery Fragoso. Anna is the acting director of the Arnhold Graduate Dance Education Program at Hunter College Dance Department, which prepares candidates to teach dance in the pre-K to grade 12 setting. Anna served as the director of dance programs for the New York City Department of Education for 7 years. She is a Hunter alumna and is currently a doctoral student at the Dance Education Program at Teachers College. Anna, for you, how has first studying dance at Hunter and directing the Department of Education dance program shaped your career path?
Thank you, Paul. This is Anna. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm a white Hispanic woman, non-disabled, cisgender female. My hair is very dark, and I have this blue-white hair on the side, thanks to COVID. And I'm wearing brown glasses, a silver necklace, and a black halter top. Wow, well, Hunter is my home. I did my undergraduate here. I was a dance education major at the time. When I came to Hunter, I already knew I wanted to become a dance educator in public schools. So I came to do my certification so I could make that happen. After teaching 14 years and being one of the educators in the facilitator teams for the citywide professional developments, I became director of dance for the Department of Education. And I was honored to serve all my colleagues and all the students that we have at the DOE in our dance programs. I supported them, designed professional developments for them. And all of that, I think, really prepared me to come back to Hunter years later to bring my expertise, my knowledge, to share it here and to learn from the new generation of dance educators that we are bringing up here at Hunter, our students.
Thank you,
I'm very
Anna.
honored to be here today.
Thank you. And then next is Nina Goldman. Welcome. Nina has been an adjunct assistant professor here at Hunter College since 2016, while she was pursuing her master's degree at the Arnhold Graduate Dance Education Program. At the time, she was still performing in various dance theater and musical theater productions. A born and bred New Yorker, Nina started as a classical ballet dancer before expanded into more contemporary and commercial theater, all the while pursuing her education. Talk about multitasking. So, Nina, what did it mean for you to return to school as an adult? And what sort of flexibility and adaptability issues were important for you to harness?
Thank you, Paul. Yes, my name is Nina Goldman, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I am a white, non-disabled, cisgender woman. In order to answer your question, I'm just going to give a little bit of a background history. Right out of high school, I was working with a classical ballet company, and continued that for 6 years, and then moved into working in theater and commercial theater. And I was in my early 30s when I was in a Broadway show that was doing well, and it was called Contact, and I was starting to feel a little itchy, that I felt that I needed to expand or broaden my perspective on the way that I, navigate and experience the world and my community. And as we all know, dance can sometimes be quite insular. Growing up, not only my generation, but also in the classical ballet world, you're not encouraged to have an opinion, to think critically. And so I was in my 30s and I'm in a musical, and I felt that I was sort of tired of being called, and we were called at that time boys and girls, and I just felt like I needed to grow up a little bit. And so that in order to do that, I felt that I needed some to be challenged in different ways. So I started with one class. I started with a writing class, how to write a paper, because it had been a long time since I had been in high school. And I started as a non-matriculating student. I did a lot of courses at Hunter College, one by one. I was still working. I was touring a lot. I did a lot of long distance courses with Empire State College. And then eventually, 8 years later, I managed to get my bachelor's degree. It was a very interesting adjustment, because I had the confidence as a performer and a dancer, but all of a sudden I was in the classroom with younger students, really 10 years younger than I was. And I had a lot of lived knowledge, but I felt like I couldn't articulate my thoughts very well. I didn't feel comfortable and confident that way. And so it took navigating through a course here and there, and then starting to realize that the skills that I had developed over years of being a dancer and professional, such as the attention to detail, how dancers are constantly working on process leading to a product, the nature of investigation. I thought all of these skills were actually aligned out quite well and were quite useful in my journey through figuring out academia. And so, like, as I said, 8 years later, I got my bachelor's, and then 4 years later, I returned for my master's degree, which is a 2-year program, which I did in 5 years, again, navigating that part-time working, juggling touring and whatnot. So that's sort of a little bit in a nutshell.
Yeah, thank you. Wow, thank you. And then there's Maxine Montiless. Maxine is a dance artist based in Brooklyn. She has a BFA in dance from the University of the Arts and an MA in arts management from City University, London. She has also completed the MA in dance education through the Lincoln Center Scholars Program in 2017 and the MFA in dance in 2021 here at Hunter College. She joined our faculty last fall and is also an adjunct faculty at SUNY Old Westbury since 2018. Welcome. Reading your curriculum vitae and your bio, it's encyclopedic, it's huge. So you have an extensive career in arts management, performing and choreographing, dance education, and public school teaching. What do you know now, after your graduate degree, that you wish you knew then?
Well, I feel like I was I remember when I was younger, I was just very nervous and insecure and not confident that I would make a way for myself. So if I could go back to younger Maxine, I would tell her to relax, because one thing that was always a strength with me was that not only did I really take advantage of every educational opportunity given to me, but I also valued building relationships. I still have strong relationships from my undergraduate career that still are very prevalent in my life. And I find that the networks that I've built have afforded me a lot of great opportunities. And also, one thing I always tell younger people when they want to pursue higher ed in general is to really lean into what piques your interest, because as you do that, you'll get closer and closer to what you really want to do. And I find that that's been the case for me. Like, having a diverse career in dance is something that I've always foresaw for myself. So, and I just always made sure to lean into whatever attracted my attention. So, and I think that has served me a great deal. I'm sorry, I forgot to identify myself. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am wearing a basic black shirt and black pants with black shoes. I have long brown dreadlocks. I'm a brown skin, Afro-Caribbean woman, and cisgendered, able-bodied. I think I got everything. I think I got everything there. So yeah, that's really, but I remember just being panicked when I was younger and having a sense of anxiety and not to say that there aren't things that make me anxious now, but I find that I'm much more confident with my skill set and trust that I know what to do and how to navigate my career better. When I was younger, I just felt I had a lot of anxiety built up for some reason, and always anticipating what's next. And so I find that, but what served me was always leaning into what piqued my interest, because that allowed me to tap in closer and closer to what I really wanted to be doing. So.
Yeah, right. Thank you. So, thank you, everyone. And for viewers, you can read a more extensive description of our panelists' bio by following the link that may pop up on the chat, or by going on the website. Each one of them have a more extensive bio that you can follow. I want to start off with this idea of the panic that Maxine just talked about.
Youth.
Yeah.
Well, I remember that panic as well when I was deciding to go back into college. I went back to do my master's degree. I was already 40 years old. And like you were saying, Nina, everybody in class was half my age. So there was really a sense of, I don't know, panic, not anxiety, panic. What am I going to do? How am I going to juggle things? Life at this time, my life had already taken off. I was married and I already had a daughter. So there was a lot of anxiety. Could you all talk about how that might have been alleviated for each one of you?
This is Nina. I actually think there's a little bit of a panic when you're training as a dancer and you start to think about college. There's this mentality, at least it was definitely in my day, a mentality that, oh, you're not focusing enough on your dancing. It's your backup plan to go to college. And I do feel like it's shifting a little bit. We're understanding that actually the college experience is going to feed you as an artist and not take away from your dancing. But I do think that plays with it, that sort of hesitation of like, oh, but I really want to be a dancer. And how do you find that those ways to use the experience as another branch of your dancing self. And then just in regards to the juggling, I do feel like it's changing quite a bit, that more institutions are they're realizing that adults do have many things to juggle, and that they're creating opportunities with independent studies, long online classes. I think since we've experienced Zoom for 2 years, I have a feeling that's not going to go away. And so I think, it's, again, dancers are very good at time management. And I think that this is just an extension of that.
Yes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's interesting because I also came to Hunter later because I was, dancing, performing, choreographing. And I actually thought that was a real advantage. I felt it was an advantage for me. I was also like at least 10 years older than everybody, at least 10 years older than everybody in my classes. And, but my relationship with the professors and the way that I absorbed the information in class, because I was older, I thought that I really got a lot from it. I don't think if I had been my classmates' age, I'm not going to say that I was a crazy girl or anything like that, but I think that at that age, I was not as reflective and aware and conscious of things as I was when I returned to studying and going back to college. So, and same thing when I did my master's degree in my MFA, I felt that my age was actually an advantage. Yeah,
I definitely agree with that. I mean, this is Tim. I think at the point where I came back to get my bachelor's here at Hunter, I was already at the point of telling myself that this is it. Got to do it or not do it. Get put up or shut up, so to speak. And this is after doing corporate world and after joining the military. But I think this anxiety and this thing that we're talking about, this fear, I call it fear to failure feeling, is what plagued me my entire life. And it took me a while to understand that it has to be fear to flourish. Like fear is not the bad thing. It's what you use with it. You know, the nerves, the anxiety, what you do with this to push you forward. Because I started dancing as a kid, you know, Janet Jackson videos, Michael Jackson videos in high school, African dance. But I always, even at that time, I remember thinking to myself, all these other dancers here have been dancing since 2 years old. And, you know, I was like 15 years old, you know, and that led me to leave and go to, you know, and do military. Then after that, I was like, oh, I'm too old. Then that led me to corporate world. And I was like, I'm too old. Until the point I was like, either Tim, you're going to have to go for this dream and go, you know, and I thought that the best route was going to college for it. Or just gonna have to just suck it up and just continue to live the life I was living. So I think that anxiety at a certain point had to push me to just lean into what I wanted to do.
Great, thank you. Paul here again. Obviously, there was a lot of juggling involved, and how, if you were to think about one or two North Star things that you held on to help with the juggling of life, coming back to school at a later age, at a more mature age, what would those one or two things be?
Maxine here. So my education experience was unique in that I did undergrad at UArts. Then I went to London right after my first master's. And there was actually a 10-year gap between that one and the MA in dance education and returning to school then. I was always fortunate. I mean, I did my later degrees here at Hunter, and I found that the community I had here helped me continue. I think that speaks to the strength of the department. And it's not to suggest that you can't get it in any other school. I find that my community of like my classmates, also people outside the program who were, you know, cheering me on. And also, I'm just someone who's always led by, I found that the benefit of going back to school later in life was that I was led by a purpose that kept me going. Like I knew I had a clear vision of what I wanted to accomplish, and that kept me pushing forward. Especially in the MFA, because I completed most of it in the pandemic. So, you know, with the challenge of online and, you know, adjusting to the world as we know it now, I found that my goals within the program is what kept me going, in addition to leaning on to the community that I was studying with.
Nina here. I think that there's always going to be moments of like, I can't handle this. It's like everything's happening at once, and especially around those exam times or, but I think it's about understanding how each of these parts can serve one another. So it's not like a separate, like my studies were not separate from my teaching, or they were not separate from my exploration in a dance theater production, or we're not separate. Like when I was on tour, how can I use my experience touring to feed into this paper I need to write? And I think it's about finding those overlaps and ways that so it becomes not like, okay, now I'm a student, now I have to do this. And I think maybe it just sort of can alleviate a little bit of that, like I have all these separate things pulling me in different directions. Instead, how can you find these overlaps and these ways that one can support the other?
Great, thank you.
This is Anna. I was thinking about like a short answer to that would be like self-discipline. Like we dancers, dance artists, we have to have such a strong self-discipline that I think that permeates every single thing we do. And you know, to get back, especially to going back to school late in life, that self-discipline I think comes really handy. But another answer is also mentorship. Like I found going back to college and working with my professors over time, it allowed me to develop this relationship with them in which, you know, they mentor me and they provided like you're saying, Maxine, that environment that is very nurturing. It really helps you to stay on track and really fulfill your dreams eventually.
Okay, thanks. Paul here. this idea of fulfilling or pursuing your dreams, you know, at the top of the conversation, I talked about right livelihood. How would you translate right livelihood in your own life, and how dance has enabled you to pursue that? And that could mean right decision making in life, or appropriate economics in life, livelihood. It could be a couple of ways to look at it. And how has dance supported that, encouraged that in your own lives?
Maxine here. When you say livelihood, the first thing that comes to my mind for me is that I wanted a life in dance. And so whatever struggles that comes with it, I love the fact that I wake up and do what I love to do, whether it be teaching, rehearsing, performing, choreographing, what have you. I have a life centered around the art form that has given me a sense of identity and understanding of my world and myself as an individual. So that's one. Also, I guess in terms of economics, is that I'm able to, you know, pay my bills doing what I love to do and figure out how the skills that I've learned in higher ed have definitely contributed to me being able to create a life centered around doing what I love to do, whether it be teaching, choreographing. Even my, you know, for 10 years, I worked as an arts administrator by day and then performed and choreographed on the side. So there's that, the fact that I'm able to sustain myself doing what I enjoy. And I definitely have valued my higher ed experiences towards that, because I gained skills that allowed me to foster that and continue to foster that for myself.
Nina here. I will be totally honest. When I went back to, when I started to go for my bachelor's, I had no idea what I wanted. I didn't know what I wanted on the end game. I had no idea what I wanted to study. And I just sort of gravitated towards things that interest me, or that things that would be sort of challenging. And then of course you did your general ed requirements. And there wasn't an end game, but I valued the process. And then after I graduated, and then at 47, I was like itching again to be back in a school environment. I was contemplating a master's degree, and I was like, what degree could I possibly get that's going to justify spending the money? And I was like, and I kept on going back and forth, and I was just like, you know, I mean, do I do a 360? Do I leave dance completely, like everything that I know, to go to something completely different that's going to be more of a future, like secure future? I thought I was interested in mediation studies. Do I do something, you know, and I thought that's not good because I interrupt people all the time. So I don't think a mediator should be. Anyway, but I started this, I had this like fluke encounter with Heather Watts and Jody Arnhold and Kathleen Isaac. And they talked about this program that was starting, the Arnhold Graduate Dance Education Program. And I literally was like, okay. And I had to put my application in 24 hours. And at 47, I started the program. And then midway through, it's a fantastic program, but midway through, when I started to do my field work and observation and then teaching, I realized, oh my gosh, I am not a teacher for K through 12. Like, I was like, this is not my strength in any way. Like, I don't know how to work with children. I don't have children. I love children, but I just didn't know how to navigate that world. And I'm like, oh, I'm in the middle of this degree and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know if this is where I'm going to end up, but I was like, I got to finish it, because as dancers, it's like, you got to get that second pirouette in and just finish it and land it. So I graduated from the program 5 years later, and I was very lucky to have this opportunity to teach at Hunter. The master's degree did give me a bump up in my salary, which is not a bad thing, but it all started to make sense because I was working in an environment that I'm now teaching the dance education students. And so there's like, it didn't make sense at the time, but now it's sort of coming around full circle and it's making sense. And I realized maybe you're not going to have the answers while you're doing it, but somehow if you just continue to plow through it, and I think eventually it sort of starts to make sense. And I at least in my case, I felt that way. And and it feels like it's the right place to be.
Yeah,
I just want to ask a question to Nina, if it's all right. This is Anna, and I was wondering, hearing you talking, what is the knowledge, the skills that you gained during the period that you were here with the Arnhold program, the graduate program, that later on you applied to your actual teaching in college?
Right. Well, very much so is about teaching in a dance education environment. There really has to be, you have to have an idea of where you want it to end up. So then you work backwards, right? And I didn't understand backward planning, exactly. And I changed my life. So I'm like, so I understand, where do I want, really, you have to be flexible. Things happen. COVID happens, and all of a sudden you're in your room and you're not in the studio anymore. But you want to have an idea of where do those students want to end up, and then how are you going to get them to that place? Also, the understanding that everyone is coming into this place from a different experience, different access. How do you communicate? How do you work with the students from where they are? Mm-hmm. And that was coming from a really sort of, I didn't go to conservatory program, but I was in a classical ballet, school. It was a very different world. And so doing this program really opened me up to ways to communicate, and to really take from the students from where they are, and then how to work with them from their starting place, finding the entry points for them. Entry points is another thing that I picked up. So yeah,
it's kind of scaffolding learning for them.
Scaffolding, yes. Yeah. These are all terms that I learned. Yeah.
Sorry.
No. I was gonna just input. I mean, when I think of right livelihood, I'm not a big person that's about money, so money never hits me first, though it's important. But I think of almost like, what's your mission? What makes you wake up in the morning? That for me is what pays me. And so, like what you said, Nina, is that I was like, what am I doing? Where am I going to go? And like after I left the corporate world, I was like, first thing I did was, I knew actually before that I came to New York. I went to a summer program, and I had this one dance company in my mind that I was going to dance for. That's it. You couldn't tell me left or right. I don't care. I'm doing this. After the military, I come to New York and I'm dancing for this company. Came and I did the summer program. I'm like, I'm not going to dance for this company. And so when you build this idea up in your head of what you're going to do, and it shatters in front of you, and you're like, okay, well, I love dance, and I feel like still I have this passion to do this thing, but I don't know where to go. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to go to college for it and figure it out. So I typed in dance college, New York City. And the first one that came up, and I walked into the program, and David Cass was in the office, and I said, hey, you don't know me, I don't know you, but we're gonna get to know each other very well. I was like, how do I get into the program? And so I knew, and at that point, it's like, I knew that getting my bachelor's, I didn't know where I was gonna land, but I knew that my curiosity, and kind of like what you're saying, Maxine, is having that piqued interest, and that's what led me to go and come here. And it could be in college. That's just the first college that came to me, and that I think it was destined for me. Is what led me to networking and learning and getting the discipline I needed, and learning the whys I have. These are the two things that helped you. One of my things was always knowing my why, either why not or why I want to do something, and keep those things in mind. And when I came to this panel, I was a little nervous because I'm a bachelor degree, but that's where I decided. But that's where I decided to
You're
stop.
Good
At the moment.
Yeah.
For now, and it's knowing my why nots and my whys. So I think it's super important. I think that's what people are afraid of or don't want to really delve into is knowing your why nots. And also your whys.
I just want Maxine here. Hearing what Tim and Nina said made me think of my journey, because remember what I said earlier about leaning into what piques your interest. I also I didn't set out to get. If you had told me 10 years ago I was going to end up with 3 master's degrees, I would have been like, what? That wasn't the plan. But what happened was there were ebbs and flows, right? So I did my first master's of arts management, and then I worked as an arts administrator for almost 10 years. And then at some point I hit a wall. And in terms of not being able to progress much, I hit that middle management portion and I wasn't being given opportunities to ascend further. And also I found myself getting a little bored, and I said, well, and I always worked in the realm of arts education. So I was like, I think I want to be the one in the classroom now. So that was led to me teaching and after school programs and then going for the MA in dance education. Like Nina, I think the dance education program here is wonderful, but my 3 years in public school teaching taught me this is not for me. And so I left the DOE and then got opportunities to start. Then I got one of my first opportunities was at SUNY Westbury, and I discovered I love teaching at the college level. Now, have I forsaken the previous degrees? Absolutely not. I find that, I have a project-based dance company and I've worked with other artists, and I find that my arts administration skills are always in use. I'm always doing some level of marketing, fundraising, what have you. Like, those skills never go away. In terms of dance education, yes, I'm teaching at higher ed, but like Nina, the skills I gained in dance ed, I use now, especially the scaffolding. I'm often in a space where I'm teaching people who are relatively new to dance and having different abilities or levels. And so how do I scaffold my information? Backward planning, all of that is the lens in which I approach my teaching. And then also even now I do a lot, I've done consulting with curriculum revision and what have you for people. So in a different institution. So those skills never went away, even though I'm now teaching in higher ed. So even though there were twists and turns, it all still ended up being of use to me at some point in fashion in a way that served me and served my passions. So
Yeah. I'm always wondering, thank you, Paul here. I'm always wondering about the value of seeing clearly what you want and going for it versus I'm not sure what I want, and sort of figuring it out along the way and making those pivots. Especially, and I'm talking about pre-COVID and all, just in general, a dance degree. Because we all have colleagues who have successful careers in dance without a degree, So if we're sitting down with and I've had a conversation like this with a colleague actually, and I would say things like, if they want you now, they would want you even more then, sort of thing. But what is it about a dance degree in this day and age with the vast, diverse careers that we could have in dance that's not necessarily on the proscenium stage, right? What is it about a dance degree you would think should be not overlooked, should be absolutely valued? What would be the one thing? And a colleague comes to you and say, I'm thinking of doing a degree in dance, but I'm not sure. I need to make my money. I could teach already. Like, what would you tell that person? What's the value of a degree in dance?
Tim here. I would say for myself, it's something that I'm a living testament of is the value of networking is one huge thing. Going to dance studios, you're very linear in what the people that you're meeting and things that you're doing. And I feel like coming here to Hunter, it really opened up the world of different styles and different people and different ways of thinking. And it really allowed me to unlock how I thought of dance and how I saw creativity and saw my artistry. So I think that for me is worlds different than, taking what you already know and perfecting what you already have to put it in the stage that's what you already do. Also, I think the thing is, to put it in for myself, how I think of it, most simplest terms, is you're doing the exact same thing as you're doing in the studio, just doing it on a much higher level. You're learning discipline, you're learning a craft, you're perfecting your craft, but you're getting a chance to actually expand on it in a place that allows you to be curious. So for me, that's way more valuable than taking that. And no shade to studio. I taught many of them. And have many girls and boys and others who have succeeded well. But I just find that the opportunity and the networking and the expansion that you have on a collegiate level and in college is far greater than for me in the studio.
Maxine here, to add on to that in terms of networking, also just having the space to think critically and approach your art form in a critical way that you may not necessarily get to do in a strictly professional setting, not to discount professional experience. I feel like both worked hand in hand for me, but whenever I was in higher ed, I gave me a chance to step back and really look critically at my art form and where I wanted to be, what kind of artist I wanted to be, what did I want to explore, be exposed to many different things in terms of history, practice and theory, and how that would feed my own practice. And because I find that when you're on the grind as a professional, you know, not to say that I never think critically about my practice in a professional setting, but you're on a grind. You're like getting the work out. You're working at your craft. But being in higher ed allowed me to stop and reflect and gain skills towards my practice, but also get in the space of really critically looking at your practice and how it ties together and how you want to move forward with it and contribute to its development. And so in a way that I don't think I would have had I strictly focused on physical practice. That's how I see it.
Yeah. Nina here. I touched on this earlier, but I do find that it can be quite insulated if you're just if you're working out of a dance studio, and it really becomes very me-centered. And when you're in a college setting, you're just challenged to open up the lens to look at perspectives in a different way, and to look at your place in the world in a different way. And I mean, yes, you still have the focus on your body and your training, but you know, writing, for instance, like to have to write papers. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, I haven't ever said as a choreographer, as like Maxine has, but I'm sure you've had to write grants. I mean, I've had to do a few applications where I've had to write essays and whatnot. So to develop your writing skills, let alone, is a huge advantage, you know, because you're writing a lot of papers in school. And I think it's really important to, I'm telling my students as well, because they have a paper coming up. And so if you're watching,
so
that's why I'm making you write a paper for those grants you're going to have to write in years from now. No, but I just think, it builds your confidence. You know what I mean? Because you're just again, I'm using the same word again, but you're expanding the way you're looking and experiencing and inhabiting the studio.
Mm-hmm. This is Sana, and I was gonna actually go back for a second to what you said before about that, you know, being in a state of confusion, not knowing really what to do next. We might be in a transitional time in our life, and then that moment when that happens, when you kind of everything falls into place, and then all of a sudden you kind of know you don't really know where you're gonna go to, but at least that direction. When I came to New York City and I was doing the certificate program at the Alvin Nicolai and Mora Lewis School, I found this brochure right on I think it was Broadway Dance Center that says dance pedagogy, and I was like, what do you mean?
What's that?
What's like people actually they're teaching you how to teach dance? Like I had always danced and choreographed, but it never occurred to me that you could actually go to a class and actually learn about how to teach dance. So it was from the Dance Education Laboratory. So I went there and I took this course there. And by the time I finished that course in a year, I was asking Jody, like, what do I need to do this? Like, it completely opened a whole world to me. And of course, she said, you have to go to college, girl. You have not been to college yet. And then, of course, I did my best to come to Hunter because I did exactly thing like that. Teeny, good, not because there was no Google at the time. Like, where can I go? And then Hunter College. So I came to Hunter College.
Oh, wow.
But that was the moment to me in when everything clicked. And I did end up teaching, 14 years in public school. And I grew up this amazing, like really big program that allowed me to develop my administration skills. And that's how I end up actually going into the position of director of dance. So yeah, things happen for a reason.
Absolutely.
But there's this moment in which you're like, oh, I had these injuries, I didn't know what I was gonna do with my life. And then poof, a brochure happened. And then that brochure, that's location, Hunter College, changed my professional career. So yeah.
I even find Tim here. I even find on a performative level, coming to Hunter or any college, you're really challenged to look at things critically. You're really challenged to not just take what is given to you, but the why is always being asked of you, and makes you actually look at dance in a different way, in many different ways. And so I see that when I go auditions or go teach in different places when we go on company work, and I see that the dancers who are looking at it and can really delve into who they are, the character work, their story, and how they can put it into the dance versus someone is waiting for me to tell them what to do. And I find that for me, that's what college really did for me, is it made me not want to tell me what to do. I'm here, I'm a vessel. More so be like, okay, how do I put my story into it? And that's how I love to dance. And again, I'm one of many, 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 but telling a story, and I find that now choreographers and directors and people in the commercial world and concert world are really looking for dancers to show up and put in versus just take. So that's something that I think that really was huge in college.
Yeah, Paul here. I agree with that. And earlier, Tim, you talked about your story. You talked about how your story shifted. You had some things, and I remember that myself. I remember considering a pattern in my head that had always been there, and similar to you, it was about perfection. For me, I got to know I will succeed before I do the thing.
Yeah.
And on the one hand, it sort of looked like everything I did was a success, but that's because you're not seeing all the other stuff I didn't do because I was afraid of failure. You know what I'm saying?
That resonates.
Right. So for me, I remember college, and that's where things like critical thinking or writing a paper and all that really helped me shift my mind about how I saw the world and how I saw myself. In fact, my mother had a plaque for me, in the image of yourself is the vision of the world, or something like that. So it had me thinking, well, how do I see the world? Anyway, yeah, that's my mom. So shout out there. What shifts also, what can you relate, describe? What might have shifted simply because you went to college in your life, in your thinking? Yeah.
Oh, I something come to mind really quickly. This is Nina. I was still auditioning quite a bit, and I remember getting rejected from a Winston musical theater audition, and I got cut. And I was just like, I was like, okay, well, I couldn't dwell on it. Like, what happened? What did I do wrong? Because I had a paper to write about Greek mythology. And I just remember it was just like, oh, okay, I gotta go and write my paper. And it was just like, it kind of took it was still important to me, but there were other things that were also important. And I think it just kind of created a little balance in my life, which I thought was very necessary. Because then as we all know, as dancers, if you experience a sense of rejection, you can just overthink it and stop yourself from doing the next thing anyway. So that came clear to mind.
Yeah. I think too, ebbs and flow, like learning that having a goal is great, but learning that the journey is actually the thing that I value. And I learned that really as a older, seasoned, young 21-year-old college student, versus thinking just of the scenario I said earlier of having this one dance company I wanted to dance for, when I was younger, and got there. And world crashed, and I didn't know what to do next. Whereas I think in college, just because of the classes and the papers and all those things that, I having a goal and be able to just maneuver. And if I get there, cool. If I don't, there may be another goal that pops out from my journey. I've learned that. I feel like in college, it's almost like I just have Gumby in my head. Just amenable to things.
I think, Maxine here, I think it makes people aware of the different avenues you can take in dance, because the reality is in this modern age, especially after going through this pandemic that we're still in, people are realizing that, don't get me wrong, there are dancers that are able to craft a career as performers, and that's great. But more and more, I feel like the world calls upon us to be able to switch it up and do different things. And also more dancers are interested in, I'm trying to come across more dancers that are interested in doing different things and not just pursuing one avenue. I mean, even the class I just taught before this panel, I had a student come to me telling me that she had this interest in dance therapy but was still questioning whether or not it was an avenue. And I said, oh girl, and I started listing resources for her and was like, I can put you in touch with like 3 women who I know who are dance therapists, and she, so her, like, it's like opening her mind to the realization that, oh, I can do this thing. And so just, I think being in a space like this gives you the understanding that, yes, there are other avenues you can pursue. It's not just one thing.
Yes.
I think that for me, this is Anna, it's also this idea of lifelong inquiry. Like I got that from Hunter. I brought that with me to Sarah Lawrence College when I did my MFA there. I brought that into my jobs, my career. I brought that now into my, my studies at TC. But that idea that asking questions, constantly asking questions about my dance practice, whatever that practice was, teaching, choreographing, performing, researching. I learned how to direct my curiosity. That's how I call inquiry, directed curiosity. It really helped me to kind of self-discipline my mind and to really work more effectively with that innate curiosity that I have, and develop it even further. Yeah.
Wow. I like that idea about this lifelong inquiry. More and more now, dance is being recognized and pivoting or angling, I should say, the dance, really as a study in humanities. And the ideas that we've brought up here about community, about lifelong inquiry, being not being afraid to flourish, being supported by the overlaps. I mean, these are all humanistic values. I'm wondering, and this is a big question here. How can dance studies forge? I want to say forge a changing world, but I want to say be in front. Be at the vanguard of change in the world. Because if now we are expanding the ideas which you've all spoken clearly about, created a platform for critical thinking and community and all, now we got to do something with it, right? And often dance is sort of the handmaiden of something else,
Right.
But how could dance, you can be at the vanguard, the forefront of changing the world?
I think this is Nina. I think as a starting place, dance, each person who comes into a dance class is developing their sense of awareness of their bodies and their bodies in space, their bodies in relation to other people, their bodies in relation to the music. And in order to forge change, you have to have, I believe you have to have a sense of who you are, a sense of self, how you exist in the space, how you navigate the space with other people. And so, fundamental dance 101. I mean, you are there with your body. And I think that's just, I firmly believe that is the place that has to start in order to then go forward into making change. And that can happen at any level. That's why we have these incredible fundamental classes here, that students from all different departments can come in and just experience a semester of a movement-based class. And I think once you have that, you can ground yourself in that way in your body and then in relation to other people, then you can start to think, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Maxine, here, to add on to what Nina's saying, the concept of understanding of self first before you can foster change. I mean, and if you look at our wider society, there's so much that disconnects us from our embodied knowledge. There is such a thing as embodied knowledge, the knowledge of self and your surroundings and your community through the body, and processing your thoughts and emotions through your body. I mean, everyone knows that, who was involved in dance knows that your mood picks up after dancing. Like me, I remember 2 days after my maternal grandmother passed, I spent 2 days like being sad. And then I said, I need to go dance. And then that lifted my spirit, being tied to my art form and engaging with it to help me process the loss of my grandmother. But so, and also, I mean, in terms of like disconnection from embodied knowledge, I mean, something as simple as people walking around with aches and pains, not understanding where it comes from. And sometimes it's indicative of larger issues going on emotionally or what have you. So tapping into embodied knowledge strengthens the understanding of self, not only just physically and emotionally, but also an understanding of the world in terms of, like, for me, when I think of my dance journey, I was a modern dance major at University of the Arts, but then it was in my mid-20s that I started studying Haitian folkloric dance to just get in touch with my Haitian heritage. And getting involved in Caribbean dance in general is what helped me tap into an understanding of myself culturally, as a woman and what have you. And it gave me a stronger sense of self and a stronger sense of identity that allowed me to move with a stronger sense of confidence in the world as an artist and as a woman, period. So, and I was just giving a speech to my students in my dance and culture class here, because they one day asked me, why dance? They actually asked me that the other day, and I was like, oh, what word?
How much time do you have?
Welcome to my TED Talk. But like, but when you have a stronger sense of identity, and because there's so much that knocks people off their sense of self and in our wider society. And I think that when you walk around with a stronger sense of self, you're able to move with confidence in the world and be further tapped into your knowledge base and your sense of self as an individual that can make you in a better position to contribute to society in various facets. And also, I've been in a fortunate position to teach courses centered around teaching dances of different cultures. And it always lifts my spirits at the end of each semester, where a student tells me that studying my class made them want to look into their own cultural heritage further, or want to explore other cultures and travel, like inspire students to look into study abroad and look at the wider world in that way. So dance in those classes for me serves as a portal for widening my students' understanding of the world as well as their own cultural heritage. And so dance, that to me alone shows me the potential for dance, not only to build a stronger sense of self, but also to do away with some of the isms that plague our society.
Oh, great.
Great.
The yeah. This idea of doing away with the isms, I'd like to pursue just a little bit. These days there are lots of isms, and in fact, I look at dance and the arts in general as a vehicle for dialogue and community, as a vehicle for democracy, and there are lots of things that are pushing back against that. How, in your experience as an artist, activist, scholar, have you pushed back against some of the isms in your art? So, for example, how do you approach your dance? How do you approach your career in dance to, in fact, push back determinedly, not just let things happen, but say, okay, this is where I'm going to use my art now to push back against those isms?
I can just say something real quickly, which is collaboration. I use a lot of this idea of community and collaboration to kind of like dismantle all these ideas about individualism and being better than, and I use that a lot in my teaching. I try to, this is Anna, did I say? Well, everybody recognizes me because I have such a strong accent. So I'm sure everybody
They're
knows
not gonna think that you're me. Yeah, but still.
But this idea of cooperation, collaboration, learning together, sharing, allowing everybody to have a voice, to build things together. I think that's what I I really focus on in kind of fighting all those isms.
Yeah. Okay.
It's supporting each other, making something really together.
Maxine here. I also allow for collaboration, and also I allow my students space to express themselves and share what they already know. And because I make it a point to help them understand that just because you may not have studied dance in a studio doesn't invalidate the dance experience that you've had. That's why at the start of the semester, I usually ask my students, what has your dance experience been? Because I make it clear that I'm not only valuing what you may have studied in a studio, because I started to notice a trend where students would be like, well, I'm not a trained dancer. Oh, but I've been doing bachata in my family since I was 3. And I was like, well, that's valid, you know? So validating people's experiences of movement, and then also highlighting, I make it a point to focus on dances of the African diaspora in my practice because of the ways in which they're still not valued in many spaces. And so, or given deeper study and deeper validation, we still unfortunately live in, there's pockets of the dance world that still value ballet and contemporary dance. And don't get me wrong, I'm a contemporary mover and I love those art forms too, but I want to make it clear to people that those serve just as much deep analysis and study as Eurocentric forms. And so that's why I tend to, I can teach a modern class, trust me, I love fall recovery and all the things, but I like to highlight dances of the African diaspora to help people understand that they just deserve just as much notice as the others. But yeah, self-expression, collaboration also very much empowers students to understand. Usually my first day of class, I have students improvise, make through a name game dance and help them see, oh, you can make dance too. And so it breaks down whatever preconceived notions people have about what they're capable of doing. Because I find that people walk in with all these negative preconceived notions of how they can participate in the art form. And so I want to do it with that to empower them. And I find that translates to other areas of their lives.
Yeah. Nina here. So I teach ballet, and as we all know, ballet comes with a very complicated history and also an aesthetic that the pushback I guess I get sometimes are from students that feel that they don't belong in the ballet setting, they don't belong, the technique, they don't have the right body, they didn't start when they were 7 years old. And I guess one thing that I try very hard to emphasize is, again, talking about these entry points that I brought up earlier, is that this is a particular technique and form, but any body can find an entry point into the form. And so it takes a lot of, building trust. I still feel like a lot of the students have this feeling about ballet being something they're an other. And so it takes a lot of time to find that middle ground where they can understand this is just a technique, and you don't, get off of Instagram. You don't need, it's not about, that's not the ideal, that exists, but that's not where we are at this moment. How do we get your body to feel, to understand this technique, to support you with whatever you want to do? So I don't know if I went off into a different direction.
But no, but it's not just ballet. Now, ballet tends to be the center of a lot of that conversation because of its history, its heritage, its focus, even just recently. Its exclusivity. But I'm thinking that how do we, in our classes, in our rehearsals, in our performances, the classes we teach or we take, create an idea around us that dance is embodied knowledge, not just technique. Now, it's a way of expression, and it's probably a way of tapping into that knowledge. But first, it is embodied knowledge, movement, and that everybody has that. So how do we express that as we teach our classes, or as we go back to college to be able to teach? Because we have to write those papers. We have to figure out this critical thinking, or as we rehearse. how do we then create that environment for the students or our peers, our colleagues on stage?
I think Tim here, it makes me think of two different things. When I teach classes, I purposely have went down the road of now just teaching social dances, purposely because I felt like I never really got that. And on the flip side of it, I feel like social dances to me when I was coming up and even in college was seen as, oh, that's the other thing. Go to a club and learn that. It's not felt as important as the technical dances were, which social dance is usually a technique.
Yes.
But also what I try to do is in teaching social dances is I feel like thinking about forging a change, like you can't go into the world with art and dance and feel like you can change if you don't feel like you're comfortable with who you are and what you know. And so I like to create a space where what you know, much like what Maxine was saying, what you know and who you are is just as important as what you do. So therefore, the learn things you know, and even in because I'm an African American male, so I think of I deal with a lot of the African diaspora dances. It's passed down lineages. It's our ancestors are coming through us. So that's kind of how I hold my classes, and I do things from I'm very old. I feel like I'm old now, but Nene and all that stuff, all the way back to the Lindy Hop, all the way back to Juba, the South Juba dance. I teach them all these different styles and show them how the evolution of dance in this and how it's naturally in your body. How when you're doing the Nene, how that actually is a style of Juba that's coming from you, coming from that. So, and how it's just learned throughout the years. So that kind of empowers them to let them know that, who I am and where I know in my generation. And what I'm giving is actually comes from a powerful place, and it's not just something that's just an after school program type of thing. But also in our rehearsal spaces. I mean, the dance company I'm with, we tell Black stories, and so we do a lot of research and a lot of talking and a lot of investigative of who we are and what are our stories and where we come from to kind of bring it together so that when we do come on stage, we can actually tell the story in a genuine, authentic manner. And also I think it's something powerful just to see Black bodies on the stage telling their story unapologetically. So.
Yep. Anna here. You were talking and I was remembering when we collaborated for the professional development with the teachers. That was really fun. That was really fun with Camille Brown. And this is how we began the mornings. The mornings were always dancing. It was always about the embodiment. It was always first learning through the body, allowing the body to understand the values, the beliefs behind those movements, the history behind those movements, all the information that was carried on in those movements, experiencing it through the body. And working with all of you, beautiful dancers and artists. And then in the afternoon, then we could get into the mind, right? A little bit. I really kind of look through critical lenses, whatever we experience with the body, but always the body first. Always allowing the body to bring the information, to translate it, to digest it through the senses first.
Absolutely.
Yeah, is very, very important.
Yeah, I want to follow that up a little bit. Finish this sentence.
Uh-oh.
I feel like Jeopardy or something.
The buzzer.
Okay. You're talking to a colleague, thinking about going into college, forging a changing world. The sentence is, you can shift the social justice needle through dance by. You can shift the social justice needle through dance by. Finish the sentence, explain your finishing.
I have one read. That was easy for me, actually. Become a dance educator in public schools. That's easy.
Ding, ding, ding.
To me. To me, bringing dance to children, to me, is the first step really to bring that change into the world eventually, to work to really share these values, these beliefs that we have about human beings, about being together in this world, about empathy, about compassion, and about dance as a way of living in this world. Bringing that to any human being in an early age is just going to make a difference for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
So that was easy for me.
Okay.
Become a dance educator in public schools. We need you.
Tim here. I'm gonna cheat. There's two.
Go for it.
By you can shift the social dance needle by being authentic, and shift the social dance needle by knowing your history. I think it's so important. You know, the authenticity is such an important thing. Just thinking of my own trajectory in my career, of knowing who you are is the only way I can be able to present myself to the world in a true, sitting in my truth. And therefore that allows you to understand, and allows you, and if you don't understand, to see it and then inquire. And then it shapes how you think of whatever you saw, you know, and it helps you progress forward. And I think that's what helps moves the needle. Also, if I don't know my own history, then how do I know what my next steps are? You know, if I don't know where I came from, then I can't go to the next step. So I think those two things are very, very important.
Yeah. Nina here.
I finally thought of one. But
I almost have two as well, but I'm not sure. Okay, so I think one, piggybacking off of Anna, is the idea of access. I mean, really creating access for dance, and that is definitely in the school system at a young age, really making dance available to a wider, broader population of people. But I also want to go back, knowing your history. I find that so important, along with maybe this feeds into it, sensing your body. So tapping into sensation, taking 10 minutes a day, sensing where you are, feeling your body, connecting with your breath and your movement and I think that will give you a moment of pause to recognize the person next to you, to see that we are here together. And, you know, we're in New York City. It's constantly running to the next thing. And so we bump into someone, we might not think twice about it, but that idea of just taking a moment, a pause to really sensing where you are and then taking in the person next to you.
The sentence I thought of was a piggyback off of both Nina and Anna. Maxine here is by increasing access and opportunities for dance. And what I mean by that is, it's led by the question, what would the world look like if everyone had access to dance?
Yes.
Not just for kids in K through 12, but community centers, senior homes. Or what if corporations gave their employees a chance to have a day to explore movement together collectively as an organization? What would that do for them as a company and as individuals? I remember, I mean, this is not dance, but I remember I once worked at one of my first jobs out of school was Outward Bound. Shout out to Outward Bound. I remember I had a coworker who was like a senior officer in development, but she also was part of a theater ensemble that was full of people that had day jobs, but they were also still actors. And so it gave them, they would basically have rehearsals after work and had shows. And we got to go to one of her shows too. And Outward Bound gave her the space to take a day or two off if she had tech or whatever. And I was like, oh, what would happen if everyone had a chance to do something like that, where they could an office that would you know, you're wrong. She brought in money to Outward Bound, but she also, they let her have the space to indulge in her art form. And we all as a company went and supported her and went to see her shows. And so what would that look like in dance, where people were given that kind of support? Even me as an arts administrator, I can recall times when my bosses would let me, because I worked for arts organizations, if I needed a day to take time off to do a residency. And I remember there was one organization I worked for that I took a week off to go do residency in Trinidad, or if I needed a day or two to rehearse, for like during the day, like, okay, sure, these 2 days you can go, or whatever. You know, I had to like negotiate always, but what if we really allowed space like that for people to
Wow, yes.
have access to movement in that
Yes,
way?
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mhm, mhm.
We're 10 minutes from closing.
What?
Oh, wow.
I know, right? But I wanted to leave some time for any questions that are coming through the chat. So there's a question here. Are higher education dance programs and dance departments interrogating their aesthetics and value systems when accepting new students to decolonize dance and open up accessibility in dance programs? That will take the 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So yes, but how about you go? Since you're in the middle of some of that. Yes.
Yes, I have to say, this is Anna, that's exactly what we're doing right now. Paul, everybody here at Hunter College, the team, we're all really involved into precisely that. Really look deep at our beliefs, our values, who we want to be, who we want our students to become, how can we bring social justice in every single thing that we do here at Hunter College? How can we make a better world, basically, from working here together?
Yeah, pretty much all colleges, I would, most colleges, because there might be some outliers that are not doing it, but you know, the world is different since not only pandemic exposing everything, but George Floyd, everyone rightfully is looking into their curriculum. How is it serving everyone? Who's being included or who's being excluded? Yeah, dance in higher education is seriously looking at themselves from that critical perspective. Some forging forward more than others, but certainly the ones that I'm close to, I know that they're certainly doing that.
Diversity, inclusion.
Yeah.
Maxine here. My answer immediately with thought to myself was some more than others.
Yeah.
I encourage people who are interested in higher ed to really look at the faculty and their knowledge base, as well as definitely talk to like current students to get a sense of the culture of a program. And the reason why I say look at the bios of the faculty is because that's going to inform what the type of networks you'll be building in dance, studying under those people. And the reason why I say also to speak to current students is because the reality is some dance programs are interrogating themselves more than others. For example, there was a recent conversation on social media where a dance professor I know from undergrad noted that, well, he and I were students together in undergrad. Now he's a dance professor in a school in Pennsylvania. He was interrogating like the hiring for professors for global dance forms. And I said to him, I don't even understand the use of that term because we all live on the globe. So all dance is global, but I know what's implied when that term is used. So things like that, like you look at even something as simple as terminology, like really interrogate, like, you know, I tell students like to really interrogate the programs you're looking at. Don't look at it as, like just be begging to be picked, but in auditions and stuff, but also interrogate them to make sure that you're going to have the space to inquire and interrogate, and that you're going to be in a program that's going to give you the space to do that, because some are more receptive than others.
Thank you for that question.
Great question.
Yeah, any other question coming up, or anybody else wants to speak to that? Yeah, I think this idea of interrogating not just the idea of what is global dance forms, but even interrogating what does decolonizing mean? Like, what does that really mean? How do we identify or define, say, whiteness? And how it affects our dance programs. Like, what exactly is that? And it's not just the color of one's skin, you know, like really what's at the base of that. There's another question here. I teach at the University of Trinidad and Tobago, and we have found a significant decrease in interest in the dance field as a result of the pandemic. This has happened both in terms of fewer persons applying to enter the performing arts programs, as well as a higher dropout rate from existing students. What has been the experience in your respective institutions, and what strategies are being adopted to address this?
Maxine here. That's a thesis question.
Yeah.
So that's a reality that the performing arts field did bottom out during the pandemic. And I actually know a mentor of mine told me how her son, who actively is a dancer, is now wanting to pursue law as a result of witnessing that. That's a reality. However, when I think back to the start of the pandemic, the first thing I think of is how everyone relied on the arts to get themselves in quarantine, whether it be making TikTok videos of them dancing, skits that are still happening on social media. I still see dances happening on social media. People relying on movies, Netflix and Hulu and all of those things. People relied on the arts to get them through the quarantine. And so that alone speaks to the importance of the art form. Now, how we operate going forward is something that I think we're still interrogating. Like dance film blew up even more so. I mean, even with me, I prefer dancing in front of a live audience, but obviously completing my MFA in the pandemic forced me to have to I created a dance film. And it was one of the richest artistic experiences of my life. And so if you had told me I would have looked into dance film, a few years ago, I would have looked at you cross-eyed, because I'm like, I prefer live performance. And don't get me wrong, I still love live performance, but now I see the being in this position I was in helped me see the potential of reaching audiences in dance film. There are people in Europe. I have friends from my graduate experience in London who are watching my film in different countries. So the reach is massive through that medium. And so I think the dance world is still interrogating what the potentials are, but make sure that I would say make sure you're in a department that's really interrogating those questions of how to move forward versus sticking to the old models, and also giving you a space to explore different interests and skill sets to meet those demands or meet the new potentials that are happening as a result of the world we're living in.
I agree. And I think what happened is, I think if we look at the pandemic and everything that has happened during that time as a exposing of opportunities, because of the pandemic, we now had to find ways. We now had to find ways of creating, being inventive, that is beyond the proscenium, because now nobody's going at the proscenium, right? So it forced us to look into, look under, look in, and look around to find ways in which dance could actually still shift the world, even though we're not on a stage.
Maxine here again. I just wanted to also add not just reaching virtually, but also something as simple as, I was just telling my students how last year during the pandemic, I had to do certain projects that I filmed myself in the park. I live walking distance of Prospect Park in Brooklyn, and people would stop and watch me because I was like when theaters were closed and everything. So watching me dance, people were like watching me film myself for my school projects. And so obviously dance in parks or public spaces has always been a thing, but that I feel like the pandemic forced us to be in those spaces more. And that also increases the access for the arts. So it's like, what does that look like to really invest in that type of programming? Like things like that are discussions that should be happening in terms of like looking beyond the proscenium. Because of what happened in the pandemic.
And beyond the classroom, because of the virtual world that we have right now. You are in Trinidad, you are an amazing expert on Trinidadian dances, and how you can actually reach out to all our dance population everywhere else in the world.
Yes, looking at it as an opportunity rather than a barrier. Great. Well, that wraps up our time here. And thank you to all of you, Timothy, Anna, Nina, Maxine. This has been fantastic. And thank you to Dance NYC.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all. Can you see me now? Sorry, my fault. I'm still adjusting to the technology. Lots of food for thought. Thank you, Anna, Maxine, Nina, Timothy, and Paul for this really beautiful conversation. And to our attendees, I hope you were able to take away, as much as I have, some really transformative ideas and just critical thinking. Also, a final thank you to our sponsors, to Cindy Kim from Biscardi Center and Alicia Bescher, Emilio Garcia from Sign Nexus for their invaluable support. We are now heading over to the session follow-up chat in the community section, where we could take a few more questions and wrap up the conversation. Just a heads up on what's next. There's a daily debrief that's coming up right immediately after this panel. And today's session is led by Maria Bauman. It's a great way to synthesize and reflect on everything you just attended at the symposium. You can also continue to experience the symposium, of course. Don't forget to visit our sponsors in the exhibitor hall. They're having a bunch of virtual expo showcase right now, and again at 5. Remember that you can also create virtual meetups and online conversations at our community board. I've been engaging in it. It's really fun. And of course, if you need some time to just take a rest away from the screen, that's fine too. But I want to give you a heads up on tonight's keynote conversation. I think it's an important one. It's called The Disabled Artists and the History of Dance, Activism, and Collective Care. It's an address by Corbett O'Toole about the evolution of dance activism and an ethos of collective care in the United States. The presentation will be followed by a response session from the Dance NYC Disability Dance Artistry residency artists. These are artists working with us. So that's it, and enjoy the rest of your symposium. Thank you again for being with us today.
Thank you for joining today's session. A special thanks to our funders, the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, the Howard Gilman Foundation, New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, New York State Council on the Arts, and the National Endowment for the Arts. A special thanks to our lead corporate sponsor, Con Edison, and our lead dance advocate, Jody Gottfried Arnhold. Subsidies for the education and dance worker ticket tiers are made possible by the Arnhold Foundation. A special thanks to our leader, host, and partner level sponsors, 92nd Street Y, Harkness Dance Center, Dance Education Library, Cataliote Law, Full Out Creative, Gibney Dance Center, Kumbay Center for African and Diaspora Dance, the Actors Fund, Ballet Hispanico, Fit for Dance, Nai Ni Chin Dance Company, NDI Collaborative for Teaching and Learning, New York Live Arts, and Tom O'Connor Consulting Group. And last, but certainly not least, a special thanks to our Justice, Equity, and Inclusion partners, Art Beyond Sight, Art Space Sanctuary, Asian American Arts Alliance, Center for Traditional Music and Dance, the International Association of Blacks in Dance, Lotus Music and Dance, Museum Arts and Culture Access Consortium, National Association of Latino Arts and Culture, New York Foundation for the Arts, and Women of Color in the Arts. Up next at 4:15, we gather in community in our daily debrief. At 5 o'clock, we revisit the exhibitor hall for more booth activity at our virtual expo showcase. And at 6 o'clock, we gather for our keynote presentation. Stay connected with us by posting your takeaways on social media using the hashtags DanceSimp, DanceNYC 2022, and DanceSimp 2022. On Instagram at dance.nyc, on Twitter at dance.nyc, and on Facebook at dance/NYC. Some features not to miss. Build your agenda of sessions. Connect with other attendees. Join community conversations. Visit the exhibitor hall. Don't forget to check out the 2022 Symposium Digital Program Book. How are we doing? Did you like a session? Use the like feature on your favorite session. Got feedback for us? Take the post-event survey after March 19th and tell us how we did. Need help? Email us at customerservice@dance.nyc. A special thanks to our broadcast streaming partners at Full Out Creative. Thanks for joining. Keep in touch at dance.nyc.